Today I'm going to be reviewing the Biscuits and Gravy meal from Mountain House. This is a 2-serving meal, so it could be good for 2 people or just a nice filling breakfast. So let's go ahead and look over this. This is Biscuits and Gravy. It has, buttermilk biscuits, and the gravy has pork patty crumbles in it. So, like standard biscuits and gravy, kind of like what I got in the military when they had the little rations where we get in line and get a tray. So I believe they're called beet rations. But anyways, this is what you're looking at for a serving. So you're getting a good amount of fat. That's really good for energy. Fat is not your enemy. Fat is what you need. You build fat by having too much sugar, which this has none, or has 6, not none, but it doesn't have very much. So anyways, has some fiber in it, has carbohydrates, and it does have sodium. Sodium's not really that big of a deal. If you haven't been eating too much food, you'll burn off sodium pretty well. So, or if you're someone who likes to fast, so 310 calories per serving, and that's pretty nice amount of food. It's pretty light. I mean, you're looking at 5 ounces here, so basically under half a pound. So anyways, these are the instructions. You open up the packet and you go ahead and add a 1 3/4 cups of water. Here's the problem. I would not do 1 3/4 cups. If you've ever had these meals before, or you know anybody, they'll probably tell you it's going to be pretty watery. So unless you want it to cool down and sit for longer, which you probably don't, I would do only like 1.5 cups at most. So anyways, to keep the gravy thicker, I'm going to only add 1.5 cups. So let's go ahead and get through this, or get into this. So it actually has a lot of waste here in the flap. The Ziploc is right here, and the flap is right here. This is a good amount of waste. I understand they need the picture and everything, but I would think they could shrink that up a little bit, or overlay the label into this area so you can still see their happy little faces. But I don't see any Mountain House meals on this picture, do you? So it's not really helping them much. So this is what it looks like. You got your little biscuits, your little pieces of biscuits anyways. It looks like little croutons, and then the little pieces of pork right there. And here's our desiccant. You don't really have to remove this, but instead of burning yourself or whatever, probably best to remove it early. So you do get a little bit of trash, which you can just put back in here. I don't think this is really too big of a serving for breakfast, but I don't think breakfast for dinner would hurt. So anyways, I'm just going to add my 1.5 cups of water. And now I'll go ahead and get my spoon and stir this up a bit. When it comes to stirring this up, you really want to make sure you're getting down to the bottom, and I do not ever recommend using a fork. Even if you're eating meat, I would recommend not really using a fork. Just scoop it up. So it's pretty watery already, and as you can see, it's kind of floating. But it will rehydrate, but you want to scoop the bottom because there's going to be powder stuck in the bottom, and the water's not going to be able to penetrate down that much. So you've got a lot of extra room here, really. So anyways, go ahead and set the spoon to the side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and zip this up. And then I'm going to knead it a little bit, which is basically just like pinching it, shooting the stuff around, so water doesn't get too trapped. It can circulate a little bit. And it says on the back here, let stand for about 8 minutes, and 8 to 9 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the opposite of the amount of water, and I'm going to actually let it sit for 10. It'll still be warm. It'll still be good. And it even says right here, for thicker gravy, 1.5 cups of water. So that's really nice that they put that little thing right there, because I haven't seen that really on other meals yet. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and let out a little bit of air so I can bend this flap and lean it a little bit. There we go. So what I mean by bending the flap is I'll bend it like this, and since it's pretty stiff, I'll just lean it something like this. So, and then it can just sit there for 8 to about 10 minutes for me. So basically, I'll get back to you guys in 10 minutes and we'll see what's up. Okay, so we're back after about 10 minutes, and we're going to go and open this up. First thing that I want to cover is This is pretty thick right now. It feels, you know, that it's not, it doesn't feel very watery, and the gravy, it probably is pretty thick, but the suggestion is that you go ahead and stir after about 4 minutes. And you know, I think that's more of a suggestion for if people are getting lazy and going a little too quick and they're not really stirring it very well. All of it was watery for me, and that's why all I really did was I just kneaded it a little bit afterwards, you know, nice and slowly. I would not recommend shaking this because zippers aren't always that reliable, but if you do feel like shaking it, I would take as much oxygen or air out of this as possible, and then make a couple of folds, and then, you know, proceed to shake it back and forth. And the reason back and forth instead of up and down is it'll scrape the bottom and the corners a little better, and you can do it side to side, but you know, that's not really my thing. So anyways, let's go ahead and open this up. So in my opinion, freeze-dried meals are not the worst that you can get. However, they're probably not the best. The reason is because if you're out doing things, unless you have a lot of time and you have fuel to sit there and make these things, then you probably want to go with something like an MRE. Now, these things are very shelf stable. They're going to be good for a pretty good amount of time. So it has a best used by date of 2048, and they can last longer if you keep them in a nice, dry, cool environment. But they're very shelf stable. They're a pretty good survival emergency ration, but they are kind of expensive. So you kind of gotta weigh that. Per meal, you could actually get like days worth of food for a little bit less. But if you want flavor, this is not a bad option. So anyways, it can take a lot of water, a lot of fuel to heat that up. If you are in an emergency, that stuff will be scarce too. So anyways, let's go ahead and look at this. Little bread crumbles are right here, and nice mix with the gravy and everything, a little bit of meat. So I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit of this little combo and see how it is. Yep, I actually think that letting this sit for a little bit longer, which a lot of people do like to do, is actually better because it'll absorb more of the water and it'll make the gravy a little thicker. The bread was almost a little crunchy. It was a little hard. Some people might like that, and it's up to you. I like when the bread is a little softer, but you know, that's really up to the end user. So anyways, I'll just keep going. Yeah, the smaller chunks seem to actually be nice and soft. It was just I got a big one, and you know, it's actually not that bad. Now, if you remember originally, I said that this really isn't that much food. It is kind of a good amount. I mean, it's 2 servings, but these things go for about $8, depending on where you get them. And if you buy them in bulk, like on Amazon or something, you'll probably get them for a bit less. Now again, if you're buying these meals, you're probably also going to want to buy a heating source, like little propane cans, like these Yoo-Hoos have, with a little stove that can heat up water. It does take a good amount of water versus like an MRE, which you can get surplus MRE boxes that will still last a long time. There's a lot of people that eat old MREs, and there's you know, the reviewers out there that do that. I eat more current MREs because that's what I'm able to get a hold of. But they can last a long time, not as long as this, of course, but you know, it depends on what you want. For hunting, if you like variety and actually feel like you're having a bit more of a meal, more like home, then yeah, this is okay, but it's going to take some time to prepare. It's going to require some resources. So you got to measure all that. Extra gear, extra water. It depends on how long you're out there. You might just want to rough it and get an MRE. And that stuff has actually gotten really good in the past few years compared to what I was getting when I was in. The other thing to look at is look how much food there is in here for one meal. Like, this is basically a bowl full of biscuits and gravy. So you would have a lot of one type of thing. If you were to get an MRE, or maybe just share this, then they would probably be better, where you get more variety. And you know, I think you'd be a little bit happier with that. Most people are. Myself, I'm not really that picky, so I could definitely deal with one of these. But yet again, it's an $8 meal, so this is just one part, and you'd need other things too. Money for a little heater and a little tray to set it up. You got to have the gear on you. It takes up weight, but these things are pretty light, so it's really not that big of a burden, really, maybe. But all that gear and this, compared to having one MRE and a little bit of water, I don't know. You got to pick your poison. Now, kind of to wrap up, I'm not even done with this. I've only had about half of this, and it was a lot of scoops of food. And I'm actually kind of feeling a little bit full. It's been a while since I ate, but I had a little snacks here and there, kind of like you would on the trail. It's actually pretty filling, so this would actually be a pretty good, meal for 2 people. However, when you're hiking or doing anything that's a lot of activity, you're going to burn a lot of calories. Now, the fats, the calories, and everything else, that's based on, you resting and the average person having 2,000 calories or needing 2,000 calories a day, and then the breakdown is based off of those 2,000 calories, what the body would need for that, that caloric ratio. So anyways, these are pretty good meals, and if you really want a full stomach, then I think this would be one of the better entrees. Bread and some meat and gravy and stuff, and fats, that's really satisfying to the stomach, and this has a good amount of fats in it, and they're good fats. Fat is not your enemy, as I said in the beginning. But anyways, it is going to demand water, it is going to demand, time, and you're going to need equipment. So you got to weigh your options when you're getting these meals. However, if you don't really give a crap and you're making that sacrifice so you can have something delicious, go for it.